This is AM Joy, August 13, 2017.
Non-stop coverage of the violence in Charlottesville, Virginia on Saturday, the New York Times quietly dropped another bombshell in the Trump-Russia probe. According to the Times, FBI Special Counsel Robert Mueller is looking to interview both former and current White House officials. Among them, departed Chief of Staff Reince Priebus. And joining me now to discuss this is Congressman Ted Lieu, along with Richard Painter, the Chief White House ethics lawyer under George W. Bush. Thank you both for being here. Congressman, I want to start with you. Who are all of these people who are claiming there's no collusion? Because according to Donald Trump, everyone is saying so.
Well, I have no idea what Donald Trump is talking about. And let me just say, as a former prosecutor, it's clear to me that Special Counsel Mueller no longer sees just smoke in the Trump-Russia investigation. He's seeing fire. He believes criminal activity occurred, and you can tell that based on his actions. He has hired a lot of prosecutors. He's impaneled a grand jury. He had FBI agents raid Trump campaign chairman's home. And now with his request to interview senior White House officials, he believes this criminal activity may extend all the way into the White House. And that's why Congress must do everything we can to keep Special Counsel Mueller from getting fired by Donald Trump.
And Richard Painter, give us sort of your take on who you think inside of that White House staff. Mueller, if you were, if you were Robert Mueller, who would you want to talk to besides Reince Priebus, obviously?
Everybody. This is a very serious situation. This has been an effort by the Russians to destabilize Western democracies that goes back 100 years to the communist takeover. They supported extreme communist groups that blew up bombs on Wall Street and elsewhere in the period after World War I. They tried to infiltrate our government through the Communist Party. Now they're working through the alt-right, the people you saw down there in Charlottesville, Virginia. They are working through the internet. They are spreading fake news in the United States. They would like to foment agitation with the extreme right. They love a fascist takeover of the United States. They've been doing this for 100 years. We need to find out who in the United States has been collaborating with the Russians, who in this alt-right movement, who has infiltrated the White House. I'd like to talk to Steve Bannon because he is very much connected with the alt-right movement. He really ought to be out of the White House, but wherever he is, he ought to be interviewed by Robert Mueller, Sebastian Gorka, every single one of them in the White House. I go right through that staff from A to Z and talk to everybody and find out what they know about Russian political activity inside the United States, collaboration with the Russians, and the rest of it. This is a serious threat to our national security. And I will emphasize, I think Vladimir Putin had a wonderful day watching CNN, Fox, and MSNBC yesterday, laughing at what's going on in what used to be a global superpower.
Yeah, perish the thought. Congressman Lieu, I wonder if, in your view, if you could tell us whether or not there is an ironclad commitment among the various committees in Congress that are investigating this matter to avoid granting immunity to any of these potential witnesses in a way that might obstruct or hinder or ultimately thwart Robert Mueller's investigation.
I think it's too early to tell. The investigations are still ongoing. And keep in mind, you can still grant certain kinds of immunity and still allow prosecutions to go forward. So in Watergate, John Dean was granted immunity by Congress. He was also prosecuted. And there are agreements that can be worked out. And keep in mind, the lesson in Watergate is that no one is above the law, and ultimately Richard Nixon resigned not for the underlying crime, but for obstruction of justice. That was the first article of impeachment. And if you look at the New York Times story, Special Counsel Mueller is very interested in the obstruction of justice allegation.
Richard, it doesn't seem that Donald Trump is taking these allegations. I mean, he clearly is unnerved by them. Every time they're mentioned, he goes off. But he isn't assembling the kind of legal team that you would expect someone in this position to assemble. You have people like Jared Kushner who are lawyering up with more experienced attorneys, Paul Manafort, than Donald Trump is. What should he be doing in terms of the kind of legal representation he needs? And in your view, is the White House counsel doing enough to make it clear to this president that this is real jeopardy for him and his administration?
No, they're not doing enough at all. First thing you ought to do is not talk about the investigation. No more tweeting, no more talking about it. That was our policy in the George W. Bush White House when I was the chief ethics lawyer. You do not talk about pending investigations. You only hurt yourself. You only dig yourself in deeper. Second, they ought to do a clean sweep of the White House and boot out anybody who had any contacts with the Russians that they were not completely honest with. Anybody who has any connections with the so-called alt-right movement, and any of these fringe groups that the Russians have been supporting inside the United States. He needs to clean out his staff and then focus on doing the work of the United States rather than constantly talking about the Russia investigation. And please, Mr. President, save us one more comment about Hillary Clinton. We're not interested in Hillary Clinton anymore. We're interested in whether Donald Trump can be president of the United States. And thus far, he's just not doing the job.
Yeah, and for those who are unclear what Richard Painter was referring to, on Thursday, Donald Trump went after Democrats and Hillary Clinton again. Let's just really quickly play that for the audience. This is cut 3 for my producers.
The Democrats colluded on the Ukraine, so they colluded. And then when you get down to it, why isn't the FBI looking at the DNC server? You have a server that the Democrats refused to give to the FBI. Now, I don't know how the FBI can investigate something if the DNC, the Democrats, refuse to give the server.
You know, Ted Lieu, it is sort of bizarre that Donald Trump sort of goes back to that issue of Hillary Clinton, this sort of weird obsession with his former opponent who did not win the election, is not in power. But there are some Republicans, some of your colleagues on the other side of the aisle, that are attempting to turn this investigation on Russiagate into an investigation of Hillary Clinton. What are the chances that Republicans in the House are going to be able to launch a counter investigation of Hillary Clinton as a way of clearing Donald Trump?
Those are completely different issues. Look, if the Russians help Hillary Clinton become president, we'd absolutely be investigating that right now. But they didn't. They helped Donald Trump become president. And it is that huge collusion problem that Special Counsel Mueller is investigating and various congressional committees. If the House Republicans want to keep rehashing the past and talk about what a presidential candidate, Hillary Clinton, may have done or not done, they can go ahead, but that's not what the American people are interested in. They want to know if actual crimes occurred, if there was collusion, and if that goes all the way up to Donald Trump or his associates.
And Richard Painter, you've seen Donald Trump now lash out at some Republicans he might need if this winds up in an impeachment, for instance, lashing out at Mitch McConnell. But also you've seen White House staff anonymously throwing people like Paul Manafort under the bus. Do you think that it is wise for Trump and his White House to start to wage war on potential witnesses and on the potential triers of fact if this should get to an impeachment?
Well, I don't think he's making any friends in the House or the Senate, for sure. And he's rapidly losing support among Republican voters. A lot of people traditionally have voted Republican are disgusted with what's going on. There's going to have to be a clean sweep of the Republican Party. We're going to get rid of these alt-right people. We're going to get rid of the pro-Russia people. And those who want to cover up this type of investigation. I've been a Republican for 30 years. We are not going to support a president who's not loyal to his own country and who covers up an investigation of foreign infiltration of our democratic system. We're just not going to put up with it. So he's got to get his act together. He's not going to last very long.
All right. Well, it remains to be seen. Congressman Ted Lieu, Richard Painter is going to stick around. Thank you very much, Congressman, and we'll see you later, Richard. All right. And up next, Jeff Sessions says that there will be a civil rights investigation